First, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're in the Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Next is approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Boyles, second by Councillor Dave Parker. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Counted by nay. Motion carried. Is there any emergency resolutions? Any emergency resolutions? Any emergency resolutions? Seeing none, we'll move on. Any errors, omissions, or corrections to the minutes of September 16, 2024? Councillor Wadden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 10, the paving entrance of Hidden Cove Road. When I made the motion, I just explained in the beginning that I had a traffic study set up with Keith McDonald to do the road passing by Hidden Cove, but my motion was to have staff look at the cost of paving to consider this for a future capital project. It had nothing to do with asking Keith to do the paving in that road, so I just want to clarify that in the minutes.
It'll be changed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay. Any other errors or omissions? Any other errors or omissions? Seeing none, we'll consider those minutes approved. Next is the correspondence first one's from A.G. Bailey for a grant for breakfast and backpack program. The second one is from Pictou Arts Society for a council grant. So, seeing none, we'll move on. Next, reports not requiring a motion. The first one is the Director of Public Works and Development. Any questions for Logan? Councillor Boyles.
Yeah, just wondering if it's the right one for the water for out there on the Ed McDonald Road. Did you get your survey done, or where were we at with that?
Thanks for the question, Councillor, and through you, Mr. Chair. We're still conducting the survey, so the survey's gone out. We received quite a number of responses. Most of the positive responses we've received thus far have been from farther west in Lynacy and fewer along Evan McDonald Road, but we're giving it another week or so to see what other results come back and what the overall feeling is from the residents. Yep. Thanks.
Councillor Dave Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 3, Blue Acre Sidewalk design. What was the total cost of that design effort that we have the product in front of us tonight?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mr. Chair. The total cost to date, the latest estimate is $640,000.
You misunderstood my question. What was the cost of doing the design?
I'd have to go back and look. We had some slight cost increases, but I believe we were, do you recall the total amount, Brian? I feel like we were in the range of 30,000.
Yeah, I think we're in the 30 plus range. Our original estimate was 65, and it was reduced because the bridge was taken out.
That's right. Yeah, we can get those firm numbers though.
But it's in the 30 plus range.
Warden Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number 10, Eric Sewer Flow Meters. I'm wondering what it means when it says MOPC's contractor terminated its agreement with MOPC due to its budgeting errors. So we no longer deal with that contractor, I take it, but it makes it sound like it was their fault because they withdrew because of budgeting errors. Just can you explain what that is?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you, Mr. Chair. That's correct. There were budgeting errors. The nature of those were that a previous employee with the company had provided us with the cost estimates and was the project manager for that work. They had given us cost estimates that we had approved through purchase order. But since that time, that employee had left the company, and the new people managing the project, which included the president of the company, said that they couldn't hold that price. So we went back and forth. We asked them if they could update us on the price for that work, if they had any slight modifications to the price. They came back with those updated cost estimates, and they were about 57% greater than the original cost estimates that we had approved. So we asked them, okay, what are you telling us? Can you do the work for the original price, or do you have to terminate the agreement? And they said they were gonna terminate the agreement.
So then it was put out for bids again then, was it, or?
We're working on preparing apologies, we're working on preparing a formal tender now that will go out. At the time, the contract had been sole sourced to that one company. So we're now working on a formal tender that will go out on the public tender's website.
Through you, Mr. Chair. It talks about completing the work by the end of December of this year. Is that gonna be possible in that time frame? Because we've been hounded pretty hard, as you know, by the, at least one other municipal unit as to why these flow meters aren't in. And it seems like now this is just another holdup.
Yeah, the intention is to tender it within the next week or so, put it out for 4 weeks. So in reality, we're probably looking at approving it at the earliest in December and possibly even January. So the physical work of the installations themselves likely won't be completed until sometime in the winter. At this point, we were hoping to get that
And
out.
can that work be done in the winter, installing the flow meters, where they have to go?
It can be done in the winter.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, because we have to hand that on to our municipal partners and tell them where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Councillor One.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to Logan. The land use planning number 2, are we behind schedule on that? I thought things were going to happen sooner than that this year.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. And through you, Mr. Chair, we've needed to get the consultant moving on it. They slowed down a fair bit with the drafting of the documents. So we expect that the revised draft documents, we thought we might have them last week. We're hoping to have them this week now. And once we receive them and review them, we are looking to coordinate a meeting with the Planning Advisory Committee. And then the community consultation meetings are set up for November. Once we get that Planning Advisory Committee set up, and once we get those community consultation meetings taking place, we'll look to follow up with the province on our overall deadlines. But we are behind by probably about 2 months at this point. Yeah.
Are those delays costing us, or is this all part of the parcel that we have signed with Upland?
Pardon me?
Is it costing us more? Like, are we going to be paying more for this because we're behind schedule, or will these be covered by Upland?
No, we're covered under a fixed contract with the consultant, so that their costs won't change. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Day Parker.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Item 17, Riverton Development RFP. Which piece of property are we talking about there?
That RFP refers to the piece of property immediately across the road from the existing Valley View Villa property. The one between the Stellarton Trafalgar Road and the train
Railroad.
tracks. Yeah.
And when you say additional interested developers, this is being prepared for a developer, and now there have been more, throw their hat in the ring, so to speak?
Yeah, we had, again, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. We had 2 inquiries originally before looking at advancing a tender. Since that time, we've received a number of other interested parties as well. So now they wouldn't have any special preferential treatment in bidding because it's going to be publicly posted, rather. So they could bid on it, but anybody else could bid on it as well. But yes, now we have, I think we're up to around five interested parties who had contacted us. And we've just informed them to direct their interest to any RFP that's put out in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Dorr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You said about advertising it or putting a tender out. When did we decide that? We didn't decide that we were going to put any tender out. We're just going to see what the options were, wasn't it? I guess the way that's what was said.
I think what it was is we put it out there, see what comes in, and then this council will make a decision on if we move forward with that or not. So,
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's correct. That was the intention, as per my understanding, at least from our previous meeting. It was that, and certainly no, we're not going to advance any decisions or even close to it before it comes before council, but that we would look to advertise it on the public tenders website, and then bring any results back to council, whether council chooses to do anything with it or not.
So we're gonna have that worded in such a way that it'll come back, because one time we put a tender out and it was totally adrift and we lost out because the wording wasn't right on the last of it.
Yes, through you, Mr.
You
Chair.
remember what I'm talking about? Some people will around here. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, that will certainly come back. It will be very strictly worded that it's going to come back to municipal council.
Just on the Blue Acres design, so far it was $20,341.89, so it's under the 30,000. So, I just have one question. Anybody else have any questions for Logan? Seeing none, Logan, I was just wondering about the tender for the water for Colburn McClellan's Brook. Is that coming soon?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question as well. I met with the consultant last week. They had told me 2 weeks prior to that they had planned to have a revised design to us at that time. They got into challenges in their hydraulic calculations, so we had some back and forth there to talk about different options. They understand the option that we want them to work on,
Yeah.
and we expect them to have those in within the next couple of weeks, looking to tender that for a 4-week period over November and bring it back to Property and Financial Services. The idea is to bring it back to this body in December, and then with hopes of awarding it then in the January council meeting.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. No more questions for Logan, so we'll move on. Development Officer's Report. Any questions? Warden Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I read through this, I don't get a lot out of it each time. I know it means something to somebody if I knew enough of the details, I guess, but I know of 2 different situations. One is in Green Hill, and I believe the other's over the Mount William Way, where there seems to be disagreements with the developer that are holding up those developments. And, you know, I'm not sure if where the fault lies. When I talk to our people here, it seems to be it lies with the developers. And of course, you talk to the developers, you hear the other story. But I think we need to get this straightened out somehow so that in future developments, and I know there's some going on, that there isn't any problem, but it seems to be around the construction of roads, which at one time I felt that we were getting taken as a council, and that people would put a bulldozer up through a field and build some houses on both sides and then say, go see your councilor, we're getting a road. And that's happened in several places. And then we changed our policy, I don't know when, but so now it calls for either a bond to be placed that you're going to build that road before you can sell any lots, or you have to build the road before you can sell any lots off it. And the disagreement is coming over whether that bond should, companies should have to put that bond up. If they don't, then we could easily be stuck the same as we were before. Some company takes off and got the money for the houses and is out of there. And that's exactly what was happening, but we're being told that, you know, those people are being punished for what other people did in the past. Well, that's the whole reason you change policies, is because it's not working. But it is holding up these developments, and I think we may have to look at, the new council may have to look at those, you know, and see how do we make, I don't disagree at all with the companies having to build the roads, but they're being held up right now because it's going to become a legal fight probably between the 2 sides. And I'm not as aware of the one in Mount William, but I'm sure Councillor Turner knows more about that one. But, you know, it's people sometimes just wanting to kind of get around what our policies are, and we can't let that happen, or there wouldn't be any rules of the game. But I just want to take the opportunity here to say that I think we need to look at that and figure what to do to try to prevent these things from being installed.
Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In regards to the development on Mount William, I had a conversations with the developer over the last number of months, and I had another one with him today. and he'd like to get this issue put before council, and he'd like it done fairly quickly, so he'd like it probably on the next property services meeting. He would like to have all the facts regarding his subdivision put forward to council and to see whether or not he considers himself being treated unfairly. So we'd like to get some facts before council, and so he'd like to get that on the next property services agenda, so.
Okay.
So,
I believe the other development is also in Johnson Rivers. Area, the Green Hill one, and it seems to be sold.
so if we could perhaps find some plan how to address and get the issue in front of council or property services committee, that would be much appreciated. So
Okay.
I think we have to find some way to navigate this issue and get the facts before council.
And we'll have to know both sides.
Yes,
of the
that's,
story, right?
and I mentioned that to the
So-
developer that I talked to, is that I needed some information from him, from his perspective, to present to council, and then if there's another point of view as well, we'd have to get that in front of council as well, so we have to find some way to get that information to council, so.
Chair, I'm not sure if it's already gone legal, can we deal with it? I don't know if it's gone legal, but I know it's close, so the Green Hill.
If it goes legal, I don't think we can. Can we? Both are. Oh, both are with lawyers, so there's nothing we can do until afterwards, so.
Another question? then?
Yeah.
So when do we expect that process to be completed?
I guess I am on. One of them, the lawyer just sent back his comments about a week ago to us with changes to the development agreement. So that's been forwarded to our solicitor for review based on their comments, but their comments are contrary to our bylaw. We
So
have a
when can
bylaw
we-
in place that has to be maintained, so the agreement has to match the bylaw, and
Yeah.
it doesn't. The other one, they've proposed a solution around the bonding. In essence, I think what they've proposed is that they would build the road prior to our spec, and then it would basically be inspected and turned over to us. So that's before the two lawyers. Actually, the two lawyers work in the same building, so they were going to connect on that last week. So I don't have an update on that one, but
So when do you anticipate that we can have an answer?
probably
Month,
within
2
a
months,
month.
3
Probably
months?
probably within a month.
In a
We'll
month?
have
Okay,
something back.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Counselor Dave Parker.
I just wanted to, I was heavily involved with the road issues as soon as I got elected in 2000. Prior to 1995, local roads were the bailiwick of the provincial government. And then they moved them over to us. We didn't have a policy. I don't know of any cases where someone just put a road, bulldozer trail up through a field and said, there. It's county's problem. I'm aware of several, which I worked on after we got a policy in place, that were taken over by the county. And that required those homeowners to contribute substantial amounts of money over a period of up to 10 years. At least one of them is still paying on that. So it's not true that developers simply put a bulldozer through a field and then walked away. Now, some of the roads weren't to a high standard. Some of them were. But we still had the same difficulty. Couldn't seem to get them taken over. But the bylaw is very, very clear that it's the responsibility of the developer to bring the roads up to a standard before we approve them. Okay, so this dodging and saying, oh, we're being punished for what people did in the past, I don't accept that argument. Okay, if they're genuinely trying to develop property and sell building lots, housing lots, then they have to incorporate that into the cost of their lots. If it costs $200 a meter instead of $100, then you have to put up the price of your building lots. But you can't try to use a lawyer to get around it. Because at the end of the day, I think we all agree that the developer is the one that should cover that cost. And that's why we put that bylaw in there. So we do have to make sure that we defend that bylaw. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move on to emergency services. Any questions for Mr. Hale? Councillor Bowles.
You know, I'm going to ask you about that program for the TV that gentleman wanted to know in case of emergencies and that. Is there a station that they can tune into?
Yes, sorry. The local CBC network in an emergency will flip over, depending on what messages we want them to send out. That would be the television station he should tune to, is CBC News. Further than that, CBC Radio is also a really good spot. They would have all the emergency alerts that go out through that. So that's a good one too.
But I think what his problem was is that he could always get one station,
Right.
you know, and that station would have this stuff on. Now he's not getting nothing, and he's wondering, is that been taken out and it's not going to be there anymore, or is that...
Yeah, sorry, maybe I misunderstood your question when you asked it before, Peter, so I apologize. I'll have to look into that a little bit further and get back to you. My suspicion is that if he doesn't have those channels any longer, he's probably not going to get them back, but I don't know the answer tonight to that.
Well, it's just the one channel. It's all he ever had was just that one channel. Like, he hasn't got cable, he hasn't got any of that.
Sure.
But he just wants to...
And a good, I guess, subsidized to that would be CBC Radio. I mean, he could always have that on. It will always give him the information. Local radio stations will always give him the information. So he'll never be without a source of information. But I will look into that now that I understand the question better, so I apologize.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Dave Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gilbert Road, West River Station. Is there any further update on that dog control issue?
Yes, there is. Both dogs have been removed from the property. They've been relocated to Truro, living with another family member. And the unsightly nature of the property is being rectified by the resident. There was a dumpster on site last week that was mostly full of garbage, and he has indicated that he'll continue to get that dumpster back until the garbage is gone. But we are monitoring that location for compliance.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move on to the fire inspector's report. Councillor Wadden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question. We used to get a printout of what was being inspected, this sort of thing. We don't get that now. We just get the graphs, which are okay to look at, but it was nice getting more in-depth information concerning the fire inspections. So would it be possible to get that form started up again, just to give us some information of what's being done and what's being done in our area so we're aware of it?
Yeah, absolutely. We can attach that with this report. This is an automated generate report out of his software, so he can just attach a synopsis, monthly synopsis.
Okay. Anybody else? Next is the building inspections report. Seeing no questions, we'll move on to the bylaw officer's report. Seeing no questions, we'll move on. Deferred business, Blue Acres sidewalk design. Logan, would you want to run us through this?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe everybody has a copy of the latest draft design issued for tender. Has not been tendered yet. for the Blue Acre Sidewalk project. The design is fairly straightforward. As Brian had mentioned, it excludes a pedestrian bridge that was handled early in the process. Sidewalk's located entirely on the southeast side of East River Road and Bridge Avenue, and we ultimately ended up with no pedestrian traffic islands, no new ones, just in order to maintain existing truck movements. Overall, costs are $640,000 compared to our original estimate a couple of years ago of $400,000. Much of that is made up due to the retaining walls required as a result of the province's standard cross-section requirement, which put our sidewalk crossing the overpass to the south of the existing concrete columns that go underneath the overpass. So that's the general nature. We also have minor stormwater elements that are still subject to approval by Nova Scotia Environment. We don't expect any issues there. We have this approved through the Nova Scotia Department of Public Works. So I think we're looking good. We can be confident in tendering this if and when it is decided that we should do so. But ultimately, we're hoping that costs come down a little bit in the tendering process, and happy to take any questions with respect to the design itself.
Okay, anybody? Warden Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The last time I spoke on this issue at our last meeting, I brought up the issue of cost, and I brought up the issue of safety. And later on that meeting, those comments were referred to as silliness by a councillor who represents that area. I think that's wrong. I think that as councillors that sit around this table, we have a right to question, especially on costs, which is taxpayers' dollars, and also on safety. Safety of whoever's involved, whether it be those who are walking now or those who are going to be walking after the sidewalk goes in. It seems that sometimes when I make comments on this issue, they're all taken in a negative vein. I think we have to look at each issue that comes before us, capital included, and make good decisions on is this the best expenditure of money. It has gone up significantly from 400,000, I understand, to 640. And again, I emphasize, it doesn't mean I'm against this project, but we have to look at it compared to other projects that perhaps others have got turned down. Because when we made our vote or whatever that we made on the capital projects, it was partly based on what the cost was. So I think council as a whole has to look at this in comparison to others that were turned down and see if this is the best place to put that money. And, you know, if the only fear I have of tendering, sometimes when you tender, then people feel this is going ahead for sure because you tendered. And if that means getting a lower price, so we can make a decision on a lower price, fine. But I think we as a council, the new council, will have to make that decision if we still want to go with this project because it's 640 versus 400. And I don't fault the reason why it's higher. If you have to go behind those, and I agree with going behind those to protect, again, come down to safety. In order to protect people walking along a sidewalk underneath there, if you were on the other side of those concrete poles, you got no protection at all. But the real one I'm concerned about with protection and safety, it was ruled out because the trucks or the snowplows or whatever wouldn't be able to make those turns if we put those islands in. That is a long stretch from the Blue Acres Esso across to the bottom of the road coming down from McClellan's Brook. That one in particular is a really long stretch, and there's going to have to be done in two or whatever, but safety-wise, I think we're putting people in a bad position. I think we should be looking at any other alternative. If we couldn't do it that way, are there other alternatives to provide more safety, especially for those with disabilities or those that are aged you know, they may get halfway across. People come up to that intersection just looking 3 or 4 different directions in a hurry. So though I still stand by the fact that we need to review the cost, and we need to look and say, is there any way to improve the safety for those people? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Logan.
Thank you. Sorry, it'll be quick. Thank you for the comments, Warden, and through you, Mr. Chair. We did look at, in the intersection that you're talking about, the East River, East Side Road intersection with Blue Acres, or with the East River Road, rather. We had proposed an alternative solution that would have called for the sidewalk to sort of wrap around the Esso and then cross more squarely further south. So it would be a shorter run. That option, our consultant recommended against that option because they said, well, people will just cut diagonally anyway. They won't bother looping back and then going over. But that was presented as an option, and that was the rationale as to why they suggested that we carry on. We did somewhat square it. We made it a little bit shorter than it would be today, but it is a long angle still. So that, just in direct response to your question, that was something that we looked at.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this issue came up at the doorsteps, and what they said is they're not concerned about crossing the road. It's when they get to the other side, they have nowhere to go. It's a mud path now. If you're in a wheelchair, if you've got a child in a stroller, which I've seen them go through this horrible, if they're not forced out onto the road, they have to walk through horrible mud. And this is the only section of that whole area that does not have sidewalks. And we will not know the true cost of this project until we tender it. And that's when we'll make the decision. We don't know. Right now we have a guesstimate. That's all we have. That's why they tender these projects out. And this is the perfect time to tender this project out to get a true cost in the winter season when construction companies are looking for work. Like, the fact that we have to debate this and think that we're making it less safe is, I'm sorry, it's farcical to me. I think we need to get on with this. Our insurance companies are going to be taking note of our decisions. We've been sued in this location before. People have almost died because they got hit by cars in this area of Pictou County. And we've been sued. And there's been settlements. We need to get on with this.
Anybody else? Councillor Dave Parker.
We've been kicking this can around for at least 15 years. And I said at the beginning, and I say again tonight, safety is the issue. Cost, yeah, of course, that's escalated. And the need to put in extra precautions for safety, I don't argue that. But I am very concerned that we will in fact see more lawsuits, especially around that portion of the intersection that my brother mentioned. That's the part that's always concerned me. If we ask people that are elderly or have some disability to cross that long section, and we just heard that the reason why they couldn't put an island or two in there was because that would interfere with the trucks. This was designed and is a traffic corridor, first and foremost. To try to retrofit it as a pedestrian corridor is both difficult and expensive. And we don't know the actual usage. Although this council passed a resolution in January of 2022 to have a survey done before we proceeded, that direct order of this council was ignored. In any world where merit and integrity carry any weight at all, there would have been resignations or firings. So we are being asked to approve something where a study has never been done. We have no data. We don't know if it's 2 a week, 2 a day, or 2 an hour that are trying to use at their facility. Okay? We should not be proceeding with this type of shenanigans. Okay? We've seen fake pictures. We've seen testimonials about how necessary it is for accessibility. It's necessary for both the able and the disabled, but it's not an accessibility issue. I also continue to have concerns about the bridge. We know that the sidewalk on the side of the bridge is 2 inches too narrow. And at the present time, the current government is willing to look the other way. But the day may come when they won't look the other way, and they'll be back here with the bill. So there's still a lot of issues here. It needs to be resolved. But I don't think saying that, well, big trucks can't turn up that hill, if you put that in there, that's like saying the trucks have priority over the pedestrians. And unfortunately, when an accident occurs, the opposite is true. But there's still, I'm not going to be here, obviously, but there's many, many issues that need to be resolved. Thank you.
Councillor Boyles.
No, the same concerns as the warden pointed out there and the coming out to Plymouth Road. When, like I was in the NMLA office the other day when the calls come in where they turn around and people coming down from the hospital, they come down by the Irving and that coming, they're not slowing down at all and they're just whipping right in there. So if anybody's walking there, they're likely going to get hit. It's very, especially at night because it's not lit good. And I see it myself because I have friends out there, and when you come down there to go out that road, you're just looking to see if anything's coming. You're not even thinking of somebody being there. And as Logan said about them moving it down, that would even make it more dangerous because then you think everything is clear and bingo, you're going to have people killed. But that's my word on it.
Anybody else? Councillor Wadden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree, we've kicked this around for a number of years, and I think it's high time we did something about it. I'm not making this up. I'm not taking false pictures. I am seeing people going through that area, pushing strollers, and I work at the food bank, so I see a lot of people pushing their food carts through the same stretch of road because they have no other means of getting around. So they have to walk, and they're walking through the Blue Acres area, and they get bogged down in the mud and the sludge and everything else that's there, and it's a lot more dangerous. I've seen runners hit on the side of the road running down there because they had nowhere to run and they were running on the road trying to get through that section. So it is a definite risk for the residents of this county, and I think it is well used, and I think it's high time we did something as a council to do something about it. I think the residents expect that, and I think as a council we should step forward and do something to clear this up. I look at Truro. Truro has a circle there right by out on Roby Street. They have an overpass with the highway. It's all sidewalked. You've got garages, you've got stores, and yet people can walk on those sidewalks safely. And so it can be done. So I think that it's time we stepped up and we stopped batting this around and did something about it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Warden Parker.
I buy into the argument about the muddy roads and the difficulty of getting along there. You know, that's quite evident. But we have to make sure that whatever we do brings more safety and not less safety. And there is a problem, and there will be a problem, and the lawsuit may very well come there when they cross our crosswalk that we put in. And don't make it across. I hate to think of that happening, but it's a real situation. It's a long ways through. Traffic moving fast there. We did talk about this here before, and I know it's going to add more cost, but sometimes maybe we have to live with that. But I can live with that better than putting an unsafe situation in front of people. Have we explored the idea at least of orange flashing lights like we have at the high school in Alma, or stoplights at the end of their, green, red lights. Something to allow that person crossing to have time to get across. Many times I cross between the hospital and Lawton's there, and you've got to hoof it right along to get across there, and that's a straight across. I just think we have to put safety at the top here, and those anything we can, I'm not big neither on the idea of going behind the Esso. I agree with that they would simply, shortcut across, most people. But has it been explored, using whether it's flashing amber lights or whether it's red, green, stop, go lights?
Logan?
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and through you, Mr. Chair. We had looked at putting in rapid flashing beacons. We didn't look at full stoplights, but we looked at putting rapid flashing beacons, and at a high level, we looked at putting overhead pedestrian lights. However, the nature of these types of traffic lights, I guess, or pedestrian traffic lights, is that if they're not required by the province currently, then they're not generally required. So going through the design process, we had felt like that was a cost we could avoid by not including, say, rapid flashing beacons. There are lots of options for rapid flashing beacons now that aren't insanely expensive, but they're probably between $50,000 and $100,000 a piece, with the ones that have the solar lights and the signs on them and the rapid flashing amber lights. So there are options that we could look at. We didn't look at them, though, in great detail because they don't currently exist there and they weren't required by the provincial department. So that's why they weren't included.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to see the pricing on those. I don't know how well things work, but when I'm driving through the city, if I see those amber lights flickering and flashing, it tells me I better slow down. There's something going on here. And that's what we need there is something to tell people there's something going on. If a person who can't run across there because the distance needs some more time, if they could press something that would give them at least a better chance, there's no guarantee to anything, but a better chance that somebody might see them, especially certain times of day. I would, think that it would be due diligence for us to at least check and see how much additional cost that would involve, whether the provincial government requires it or not. After somebody's killed in there, everybody'd be pointing fingers at everybody then anyway, so I think we need to do our due diligence on that safety issue. Thank you.
Councillor Bowles?
I was just wondering, is there any stipulations of how long a crosswalk can be?
I imagine there probably are. Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure what those would be. All we know is through our work with the consultant and through our approvals with the province is that our sidewalk, or our crosswalks rather, are approvable as they are right now. So they're not in excess of any standards that that would be applied. But there's no, I mean, they are long. There's no question about it. But they do meet all relevant requirements because we did receive approval from the provincial traffic people out of Halifax.
Councillor Thompson?
Just looking at the drawings, and I just want to make a comment about the improved safety of having just the lines on the road, because I had more than one person complain about cars turning left and right down at the end of the East River East Side Road by the Esso, and cars sort of sneaking up on the inside lane. This will eliminate that opportunity in both intersections. Like they've cleaned it up and provided proper guidance for motorists to turn in the right spot. I think this is a perfect design, and we should tender it right away.
Okay, is there anybody else? Warden, or Deputy Warden, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what is the next step? Are we ready to go to tender? And I'm all for that because we got to get a price before we could argue all night around this table before we get a price. Safety or not, we can look into safety stuff after, but I think the thing is to get the tender and get a price on it. Other than that, we're sitting here arguing over stuff that we don't know.
Logan?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Deputy Warden, through you, Mr. Chair. We are prepared to tender. We're ready. The documents are in place. We're ready to tender if it's the will of this body to do so. So Yeah, but we're ready to go whenever we're asked to. Yeah.
I'll make a motion, we tender the design work for pricing to complete the sidewalk project in Blue Acres.
It's moved and seconded. Any question? Questions? Councillor Boyles?
Well, I'll be voting against it just because of the safety issues and stuff like that. I will not support it.
Anybody else? Warden Parker?
I will be voting in favor of it for the idea of getting a price, but I still feel it has to, after that, come back to this council to make the decision based on that price.
And it does. It does. Okay, anybody else? I just want to say something. I drive that road every day, and people talk about safety. Well, this will improve the safety of what's going on there now. I see that intersection, it is a long thing, but people, when they see somebody coming, they slow down or they wait before they turn and things like that. But I think this here would improve the safety of that intersection. It'll improve the safety of people walking. In the wintertime, I see people running on the side of the road because they can't get in because of snowbanks. I see people in a wheelchair, and I did see this myself personally on the road because they couldn't get on the sidewalk because of the mud and the slush and everything like that. So there is concerns there of safety, and by us doing this would create a safer place for people to walk. You know, as far as cost goes and safe study, we never did that for the same sidewalk when we put it in out there for the high school. We built a sidewalk for school to go down to a store and back. So, you know, I think that we should move forward with the tendering process, see where it comes, and then make a decision from there. Councillor Dave Parker.
Wish to refute a point you just made. There was never a motion in front of this council to do a study on the Alma sidewalk.
No, I know.
There was a distinct and clear motion on this East River Road project, which was ignored. But nobody's been fired and nobody's resigned.
Okay, so we'll move on. We had enough discussion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Counted by nay. Nay. 2 nays. 3 nays. Motion carried. Okay, we'll move on. Any motions of reconsideration? Seeing none. Before I close out, I'd like to wish all the best to Councillor Elliott, Councillor Dave Parker, and Councillor Butler. This is your last meeting for Property Service, and wish you all the best, and thank you for all the years that you put in here. I'll call the meeting adjourned.
Okay, I will call the Financial Services meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Before we begin with the approval of the agenda, I would like to begin by saying thank you. It has been an honor and a pleasure to serve as the chair of the Financial Services over the past 4 years. I feel that I've not only grown as a counselor, but grown in this position as well. So I thank you for your patience in the beginning, and it has been, like I said, a real honor to sit here and serve council. So thank you very much. First, we'll have the approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Turner. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have emergency resolutions. As always, majority consent is required. Any emergency resolutions, and final time, and any emergency resolutions? Seeing none, we'll move along. Any errors, omissions, or corrections to the minutes of September 16th, 2024? Any errors, omissions, corrections to the minutes of September 16th? And finally, any errors, omissions, corrections to the minutes of September 16th? Seeing none, we'll consider those minutes approved. Number 6, reports not requiring a motion. First, we have the communications report for the month of September. I need a motion. Oh, sorry, I don't need a motion. No, just kidding. Just kidding. It's my last night, so sorry. Too ambitious. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, moving along, recreation for the month of September. Seeing none, move on to, oh, Councillor Turner snuck in on me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding the climate change, Adam has worked really diligently putting together a presentation that the Climate Change Committee are going to be presenting over the month of November. So it's going to come to a community center near you. It's very critical, important information that we're going to be sharing with the public. So I would encourage all the councilors when it's in your area to attend these meetings, because it's such a critical issue in terms of some of the issues that we're dealing with in terms of erosion, in terms of wildfires, and each one of those areas will have its own presentation. So when it comes to your community, it's going to be how many dates do we have, Councilor Parker? We have 8 dates, and so if you get a chance to go and participate in these meetings, I'd highly encourage you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor David Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to update a few more points on what Councillor Turner has just said. We have 8 dates. I believe it's every Tuesday and every Thursday throughout the month of November. And we're going from Halls, Caribou, and Durham, and Merrimack, and Hillside, and Eureka, and so on. It will be a presentation. It will not be a debate on the merits of climate change. It will be a presentation of possible impacts that could affect our county. So it's an information presenting session, and certainly there will be questions. One concern I have, having heard what our Director of Public Works said a few minutes ago about the land use bylaw meetings being in mid to late November, this may cause some confusion. They may want, if it's possible, they could delay by a week or 2. This process is long and drawn out. I'm talking about the land use bylaw process, just so we're not confusing and conflicting in various communities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Parker. All right, seeing no other comments, we'll move along. Warden's report. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At a previous meeting, I questioned cell service in the county and the announcement that our provincial government made to assist cell service in eastern Nova Scotia. And I'm wondering, Mr. Warden, in your comments there about having met with the NSPC, did the issue of extending or including Pictou County in this $60 million project that the provincial government is working on, are we going to see any effects from that?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Butler. The discussions we had with NSPC did not involve cell service, because cell service is not their responsibility. The discussions there were over our use of their poles and their lack of maintenance on those poles over many, many years, costing us a lot more than it should be when we go to install our lines. So that was the big issue with Nova Scotia Power, along with an issue on Caribou Island, where the poles are too short, according to some of the studies that were done, and would require us to replace all the poles. But that's being studied further now, and hopefully we're going to be able to extend fiber to Caribou Island without having to replace all the poles. But bottom line is that those meetings had nothing to do with the provincial government's trying to get better cell service. That's been farmed out, if you might say, to Rogers for the most part. They are going to, I believe, hook on to some of our towers, but only, and somebody here can correct me if I'm wrong, 2? Yeah, and only 2 out of 14 or 16, whatever that number is. But that's their choice, not ours. They want to hook onto the ones that will be usable to them to further extend coverage. If ours and others that are already there aren't usable for them, or they don't see them as usable, then they will put up new towers. So we would like to have them use more of our towers, but we can't force them to. They're there for them if they choose. They only chose 2. And we can't force them to use ours. It must be for business reasons that it's not going to do the job they need it to do, is all I can assume. But we have asked them to look and see if they could use more of ours, but I don't think we received anything positive back on that subject.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Butler. Any other questions to Warden Parker on his report? All right, seeing none, do you want to have a comment or anything, Warden Parker?
Only quickly, we had a meeting of the Wellness Center Governance Board, which was the last meeting. Of course, there'll be different people around the table after the next meeting, but continues to be there's another bill coming to our county. What's the amount? 106? I forget the amount now, but there's 106. 106. So to pay toward the debt. We already paid once, not that long ago, for our share of the debt, and this was up to the end of the March 31st, 24, and it's all to do with energy. It's all about power bills still being way too high. Hired a company that guaranteed that if we did everything they said they wanted us to do, that they would look after any increases after that. But that hasn't happened, so the bill continues to come back, continues to be on the back of the taxpayers in our county and in the other municipal units, their share. Hopefully, the people that work at the Wellness Center and lawyers or whatever can get this figured out. But right now, it is costing us considerably more because we're not getting the benefits that we should have gotten from that work. And so it will be left up to, well, either they can negotiate something or it'll be left up to lawyers, I guess, at the end of the day, which is unfortunate, but we're spending dollars that we shouldn't have to spend. But that place is just unbelievably inefficient when it comes to power, despite all the things they've done. They put in the high-efficient lights. They did all kinds of things with coordinating the pool with the rink and everything. It still continues to go up. It's unbelievable how the power rates in that never stop going up, despite all the good work that has been done. So I just wanted councillors to be aware of that, I guess. So if you hear it out there that, yes, still a problem. We still need the place running. It serves a lot of people, but we have to get the costs under control, and that hasn't happened yet. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Warden. Is there a motion? Or I don't need a motion. Goodness me. Okay. Moving on. Internet report. Who is gonna, do you wanna? It's on me?
I think Brian has one.
Oh.
Let's just see if I can do this. Just in addition to the report that was in your package tonight, which is really the marketing side of it, we just did a quick, I guess, update kind of on where the project is as of, I guess, today, we'll say. So, yeah, there. We just have to kill the other one. So as of right now, we have 2,245 homes serviceable. The active fiber to the home is 403, and 38 are awaiting installation. We've completed 155 kilometers of the 950 kilometers of the overall project. I'm going to put this in. Oops. I'm going to put it in slide mode so I can just move. So currently, areas that are under construction are Tony River, River John, Scottsburn, Meadowville, and West Branch, which is those segments represent 140 kilometers of fiber. We've released to VistaCare for construction 140 kilometers of strand, cable, and pigtails. As we're building, currently Nova Scotia Power has deficiencies on 30 kilometers of construction that's been released, which is holding up production. So we get the permit to build, we get on site, there's an issue. Could be tree trimming. Happens a lot. They trim the power space. We're not working in the power space, we're working in the communication space, so it's not safe for our crews and the companies to be working there. Things like that, or there could be anchors missing on poles, a new number of things. So planned release for construction by the end of 2024, total 83 kilometers to be released to VistaCare, sections around Three Brooks Road, Salter Road, and Union Center. Some sites in and around town of New Glasgow that move us out from the hub that's there, Abercrombie Road, Cape John Road, the side streets, Three Brooks Road completion, and the side roads of the River John area. So the 2024 year-end goals for construction, the Tony River, River John, Scottsburn, Meadowvale, and Scottsburn Road and West Branch fiber service areas. Those will be complete by the end of 2024 and serviceable residents. The early work plan for 2025, Caribou, Union Center, Little Harbor, and Sutherland's River are the areas where we go next. So field resources. So VistaCare has 4 crews here, 3 splicers. Their production rate is about 1.5 kilometers per day. That is probably about double where we were with the previous contractor that we had working on the project. So their ability to move the project along has increased dramatically. And if we get to a state where we had more make-readies come available, they have the ability to ramp that number up even further because all their crews are Nova Scotia-based. They're a Nova Scotia-based company, so they can move that up. Nova Scotia Power has 1 line crew dedicated to our project and 1 contractor crew dedicated to the project. So currently, sites that we are in full production, so we have a site at the Central West River Fire Hall. We have one at the town of New Glasgow. We have one here in this building, and this is the housing of the electronics that allow us to distribute to residents. We have one at the Tony River Community Center, and we have one at the River John SL, and they are basically the little building to the right of the big building. That's what they look like, and that houses all the electronic equipment to allow the fiber to function. The sites that are currently under construction: Scottsburn Fire Department, Caribou Fire Department, West Branch Community Center, and the Meadowville Tower site. These are somewhat these sites are changes from where the original design was. These, at one time were going to be pole mounts, I believe. And then the ability to partner with community halls makes it a lot better. We can install these at community centers, and the trade-off is we provide the community center with free internet, is the trade-off there. So just kind of very high level, so summary of our build issues. The first one, Nova Scotia Power, continues to be really our biggest holdup on the project, and the make-ready work is slow, tedious. Events such as the last month in the United States, crews were basically pulled from here for a month type thing. And that one's an understandable thing because a couple of years ago we were on the other side of it. So that one, it's hard to say anything about that. The speed of the detailing work and make-ready continues to be of concern to us. And the quality of the make-ready work is inconsistent, and that goes back to that 30 kilometers before. It's not always the way it should be type thing, or the way it is basically outlined to us. So, so this is just the routes that we're looking at, and kind of the timelines that are associated with it. So much of the brown is what's currently under construction, and the yellow is the fourth quarter of this year, and then it just goes down for there. So the plan is to be complete second half of 2026, and that's doable as long as we achieve the make-ready work has to be complete within 2025, the first half of 2025, in order for us to be able to meet that 2026 deadline.
Will you send that out?
Yeah, we can send that in.
Okay, perfect. All right, now I'll open the floor up to any questions or comments regarding the internet report. Councillor Boyles.
My question again is District 9 going to get the internet, or, you know, or community centers or anything like that, or is we left out?
Where's District 9? Over here. There's some in District 9. What's not showing on this is the overbuild in districts that where Bell and Eastlink are already there. That's not shown on here. This is just the ISED project, the federal and provincial build. So that project is not shown here.
But a lot of the ones you mentioned, like New Glasgow, I imagine Little Harbour's got, you know, sufficient internet, and, you know, so I just don't understand why 9 is being left out.
Be kind of in that area.
Go ahead, Warden Parker.
I think it's a good question that Councillor Boyles asked, and I think we should look into and see what is in District 9, you know, that we're actually going to be doing, for sure. That question has come up a few times, so I think we need to have an answer for it. So I don't see an obvious direct answer there now, not all of District 9, I'm talking about Hillside included, but also Lindesay and all the rest, how much is going to be serviced.
Especially too with, you know, it's going to be a comfort center and emergency, you know, center if in storms or stuff like that. We got nothing.
we don't want to leave anybody out. I think I made that clear before. But, you know, it's hard to tell right now, and part of our problem, and it's not here tonight, and probably some of it has to be kept confidential, I don't know, but at some point, we're paying too much for Nova Scotia Power's work of these permits and what has to be cleaned and everything, because we're paying for the last 25 to 30 years in many cases. And so that case has been brought forward to them, and because if we don't get a change in that billing, then are we going to have to cut some at the end? We want to do this Project X, as it's so-called, which is after we've used up all the government money, which has to go to those who have nothing right now first, and that's understandable. But then Project X is to get out to those areas that do already have something with what dollars we have left, that are our own dollars in, so nobody can tell us where we can spend them, where we can't. And the idea is being able to reach out to all these communities. But if we don't get somewhere with Nova Scotia Power so that we have our money left to do those, then that means some of those areas won't get done. I'm not saying those are in District 9. You know, they could be in anybody's district. They're more on the tail ends of the roads and stuff, that maybe we won't be able to go as far. But that shouldn't happen. Nova Scotia Power should not be charging us for the work they didn't do, and over the last 20 years, and they understand that. They've sat around this table with us, and they acknowledge that that the billing is high, and we need to get that down so that our project will have the money to get to the end.
Well, I'm on an advisory committee with Nova Scotia Power, and we just had our meeting. I wish I had known this part, but I'll send a note to them and ask them for our next one, which likely won't be till May or June, but ask them to put this on it, like what's going on, why is it, taking so long, and is District 9 and other districts just being left out? Why?
We're not fighting with them, but we're dealing with them right now, trying to get somewhere so that things get corrected for what it is.
Okay. So we'll get back to you, confirm that, just so you know exactly what District 9, what area's being served. That's, I think, absolutely. Councillor Wadden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to Councillor Boyle's point, there is no fibre run in Little Harbour. It's strictly wire, the copper wire. In any case, my concern is Pictou Landing. I know there is fibre run with Bell through Pictou Landing, but it's not servicing anyone in Pictou Landing. It goes directly to the First Nations. So will they still be overlooked because it happens to be running through their area, but they're not? No one can get service from Bell with their fibre.
So that's the Project X that talks about the overbuild, because that area, from Industry Canada's standpoint, there is a high capacity line that goes down to Pictou Landing Road to the First Nations. So that is deemed served, and it's happened in other areas in the county. So that's where the Project X comes from. It's not eligible for government funding, but it doesn't say we can't go in there and put a line up to service those residents. But it's, as the warden said, it's at our full cost. Like everything here that's on the map right now is cost shared with the federal government, right? Federal and provincial government. That's where the $41 million goes, is here, right? So.
So do they just wait and see what happens? Is that what we're telling them at this point?
At some point, we need to make the decision whether Project X happens or not, right? And as I said at the audit committee, which will come up in that report, the cost pressures that we see right now from Nova Scotia Power do put some of that in at risk, right? Because we're paying, it's eating our contingency.
Yeah.
Well, it's obliterated our contingency, and we're now into the Project X.
And I guess just trying to explain that to the residents, they don't care. They just want service. People in Woodburn are still on dial-up, for heaven's sakes. So that, unless they have Starlink. So, it's a real concern. But trying to explain this situation to them, especially in Pictou Landing, telling them that fiber's going in by their door, but the Bell's not running it. So they're not running it to their homes. It's very difficult to explain that to them, that what we're trying to do and what we're, held back from doing. So, we have to find a simpler way to explain this to some of the people, because it is a very, very difficult situation. Just on your report, Brian, I'm a little concerned with that. The released construction part and the Nova Scotia Power still held us up. Was back in your report there. What does it mean when you say released construction? Were they not involved in getting any of that information released, or are they second after we release the construction information, then we go to the Power Commission? I'm just not sure what.
No,
what
so
happens
Power
there.
Commission, the hierarchy is, so what we've released for construction to VistaCare has been permitted by Nova Scotia Power that we can go build.
Okay.
So we go build because we're told it's safe to do so,
But there.
but there are things that have been missed.
So
in
what's the
detail.
recourse on that? Like, do we just continue having this happen, or is there any kind of a
The
watchdog? or-
recourse on, like, if it's tree trimming, we had basically had that issue come up so many times. If it's a tree trimming issue, it's fixed within 24 hours. Because of the dedicated crew that they have. So if we're out there and whatever road and the tree wasn't cut, within 24 hours it will be cut, because they will direct that resource back. So we've somewhat fixed that
Okay.
issue. But if it's a missing anchor, or some other thing that only Nova Scotia Power crews can fix, that could be weeks. Like, we've had poles that were missed. So by the time they scope the pole and install it, it could be 6 weeks.
But like, are they previewing the work to make sure that the stuff is ready for us? Is that what they're supposed to be
They're
doing?
supposed to be doing.
And
Yes,
they're not
that's part of
doing
the
it.
detail.
So that's what I'm saying, is there some sort of a.
Yeah.
What's our recourse?
It's mind-blowing that it happens, but
Yeah.
that's what we're dealing with.
I guess I'd like to add to that, Madam Chair, that.
Yes, go ahead.
We've sat around this room, must be half a dozen times now, with Matt Draper or whatever, and a bunch of fairly high-up people from Nova Scotia Power. They understand what our issues are. They don't argue that they're not issues, but, you know, they keep saying they're gonna do better, and a lot of it has been improved. Having this dedicated crew here all the time has helped some, but it's very frustrating to walk out of here and everybody seems to agree that something's gonna improve a lot, and we're having the same meeting in 2 months, and not a whole lot has improved a lot. There's not a lot of, I know you're saying, what are the other alternatives? There's not a lot of alternatives. We have to work with them. It's their poles we have to go on. The government and nobody else can dictate to them, you know, to do this, but they keep telling us they want us to be successful, they want the project to be successful, and they're here to help us. Just sometimes those words don't translate into whoever has to do the job. I think we are better off than we were. We have gained all the time, but it's frustrating to everybody that everybody doesn't have it right now, that's for sure. Anybody that's out on the doorsteps would have heard that, I know, but they are working at it, and Nova Scotia Power is the one that we have to keep hammering at too. It's the holdup.
And I agree with you there, but I'm just wondering as a recourse for us, because we're running into this constantly. You would think the UARB board, we could go to someone to try and help us get through this situation with the Power Commission, because talking to the executive of the Power Commission, of course, they're going to work with you, but nothing's getting done at this level to.
But I
move
think we
forward
have
with this.
gained some. I will add, I don't
Yeah.
want them to get the message that we
No, but
said
it's
they
just-
did nothing. But it's still a work in progress, I guess, that we still keep I don't know if the UARB, I don't want to get in a position where we're, you know, confrontational with them. We
agree.
could end up paying for that too.
No, I agree, but it's just frustrating when every time we hear of a concern or a holdup, it's NSP that's causing the problem, and
Well, that's what we're
It's been constantly
hearing.
over a number of years, so.
That's what we're hearing from our advisors, for sure.
So I did hear Brian say you were gonna send this package out this.
Yes.
Okay, perfect, I appreciate that. And also, just on your monthly report, if there's any way we can get a running total of how many services we have, like this month, say we have 661, the next time, I don't know if you do it monthly or every 2 months or whatever it is, if we could see how many services we have increased in that 2-month period, I think it'd be important to see just the kind of growth we're seeing out there from the work that's being done, so I would appreciate that. Thank you.
To have like a monthly growth report, like, yes, yeah, difference of, we hooked up 25 people this month, or, yeah. Yeah.
We can probably change the subscribers per month from a graph to a numerical, which would show you your month over month.
As long as we can see month over month, so that
Yeah.
I know what I'm looking at from last month and see what I'm seeing this month. That's,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
thank you.
That chart at the bottom of page 1 is simply a numerical
Yes, instead of a
chart
graph.
made into a graph, so the data is there.
Okay, anything else that answers your questions, Counselor Wadden? Yes. Okay, perfect. Yep, Counselor Palmer.
Wasn't sure if you see my hand there, Madam
I did,
Chair.
I had your name down.
Okay.
Sweet.
On that slide you just had up, Brian, it showed the District 10, and it didn't show anything being served or any fiber going there. So I guess that they consider District 10 is already served by other providers. Is that what that means?
Correct. So that's a Project X.
That's a Project
well.
X. So if the other projects that we're working on, the outlying areas that don't have service right now, if we go over budget on that, that will take away from moving into the districts that already have services. Is that correct? Is that
Yes.
like an overbuild? That's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
so in essence, any cost overruns that we have on the project, and the easiest way, I guess, to look at it is what was handed out tonight,
Yeah.
right? So when you look at that, the original build was 95 million. To complete basically what is shown on this map here, right now, with the estimates that we have in for the make-ready work that has not yet been completed or invoiced, brings us to, in essence, 92 million, right? Project X was included in that 95 million, and somewhere rough between 9 to 10 million, right? So it is cut into
the
that
other
project already,
So
right?
that project.
So we have, right now, if we look at it and say, okay, well, we're gonna build to our original budget, the 95 million, we're basically doing 1/3 of Project X.
1/3. And the only thing about Project X, that's where the bulk of your homes are, right? That's where you can get.
There are segments in Project X that have the density, so if you can take 20 to 30% away from an incumbent,
That
It-
goes to your bottom line.
it goes to the bottom line.
That's,
Correct.
that's my concern, right? If we're not going to do those areas, right? So,
So that's the reality.
again, Pictou Landing is considered a served area, right? So they don't fall under the federal provincial agreement, right? What about the Sherbrooke Road? Is that the same thing? 347? Down to the county line?
Yeah, what's not shown on here is that there is the pink line that runs down here in those areas. In order to get to that, we have to run backbone fiber, right? Every place we run backbone fiber, we do put distribution cable on it as well.
Are you saying the 347? Going down the 347?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in order to service this area, we need backbone or,
Yeah.
right? So any place we run backbone fiber, we put a distribution cable on it.
Yeah. So, and I mentioned this here before, I was at the meeting out at Blue Mountain back in 2016, Blue Mountain Fire Hall, where Bell got money to put fiber from Thorburn down to the county line, and they went in St. Mary's and further. None of those residents were able to hook on that line.
No.
So that was a big announcement for nothing. Like if
It got fiber
It
to
got
another
fiber.
destination.
But they said that residents at that meeting, or at that announcement, they said that residents in Blue Mountain would get fiber.
Yeah.
And here they are today without the fiber,
That-
right? That's,
I guess the easiest way to describe it, and it's the same in Pictou Landing, they built a highway and did not put any off-ramps or on-ramps on it. And that's what you have. There's the line from going down to Blue Mountain area. There is no terminals on that fiber. It's,
That's too bad. So we can put our fiber down that area, can we?
yeah.
We can? Okay.
Yep.
Let's see. I guess that's all my questions there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Palmer. Councillor Butler.
To begin with, I take exception to the slide here. Most of District 1 is not shown. It's covered by the
That was covered by the legend, yeah.
by the legend. Number 2, and I could stand to be corrected here. In one of the earlier slides, it said that 16% of the fiber, the strand cable is now in place. And so if that is correct, it's taken us 8 years to get 16% in. And you're suggesting that by the end of 2026, everyone will be serviced. There's a large gap there, and I really would question whether further off districts will be serviced by 2026.
We only started building in 2021, physically building.
Okay.
So we're 3 years into the build.
And you still feel confident that we're going to be everyone serviced by 26, the end of 26?
If Nova Scotia Power, and that's the caveat, meet their objective on the make ready, then we have the build capacity to do it. Right? Like we've 155 kilometers in service now. We'll have 140 by the end of the year, additional. Right? And then an additional 83 basically released for the first couple months, right? In the new year. So, I mean, the build capacity is there and we can ramp it up. Like, that's the one thing we do have that with the new contractor that's on site, and the crews, like running the lines is the easy part. It's the splicing and the electronic integration that takes so much. And we have 3 splicers now. Before we had one good one. So on that side, we've got triple, and that's where they connect the wires into the electronics and do all of that. So we've got that much more capacity there, type thing as well. So based on what we're seeing out of them today and their production, there's the 2026. If Nova Scotia Power meets their deadline, then we do not have an issue meeting ours. Projected. But that's all we have is the best, but it is tied back to that make ready work being done, right? Because we can't start until they're done. So.
Okay. Warden Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I want to emphasize what Brian said. I think it's taken us a long while to ramp up, to get the right companies, to get the right experience and stuff. And the speed we're going to be traveling with now, if Nova Scotia Power comes through, is a whole lot faster. I agree with you, 16%. Doesn't seem like much even if we started in 21. So it has to ramp up, so we made sure that there's enough people on hand to do the work. So we don't want to be held up every time you turn around by, well, there's no permits for here, no permits for there. We were promised at one time these permits would be done, all of them, at the end of 2024 this year. We're only 2 months from that, so that's not going to happen. But I think we have to be careful not to send out the impression that a whole lot of this is going to get canceled in the areas like Councillor Palmer said, where there's a lot of the homes, or at the ends of some roads that people are really expecting this too. We're going to pound Nova Scotia Power hard to get that billing in line with what it was supposed to be, so that we don't lose. We don't want taxpayers' dollars lost that should be going to help our residents to Nova Scotia Power because they didn't do the work when they should have done it. So we're going to continue to, push them hard to try and get that. That's what we're relying on now. We want Project X to get done,
Yeah.
not to get pushed off the table.
And we are pushing them. We have one make-ready that we have about an $850,000 estimate on. We think we're going to eliminate that $850,000 in its entirety because we're pushing them on standards. Like, you can't change the goal line every time we approach it type thing. So we've pushed them on a few things, and pole replacements, things like that. We're basically saying, and in some cases, where we would be dinged for the pole to be replaced, it's like that pole is so far beyond its useful life and has deteriorated to a point that we shouldn't be on the hook. So we're starting to get compliance on that side of it from them to say, yeah, you're right, you shouldn't be doing that. We will take that on as our capital project, part of the capital project. And the other thing we're doing is we're overlaying our project where we haven't built with them. We've provided all of our files to them. They're putting it against their vegetation management plan. So where those areas match up, there's an agreement that they would take those costs on as well. So we are trying to shrink the number and get more accuracy. So we are, as the warden says, we've pushed them through multiple meetings. We continue to push them on a weekly basis. And we're starting to see some positive results on costing type thing, but it's slow. I think that's the easiest thing to say. It's what is said, well, we'll have an answer to you by the end of week, turns out to be 3 weeks, right? So it's just tedious, but
Nobody's in a rush.
our sense of urgency and their sense of urgency are not always the same. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Counselor Boyles.
Yeah, when you're saying make ready, what does it consist of? Like, what has to happen for it to be made ready?
So make ready could be anything from, so it's basically how you attach to the pole, right? So it's like anchors to attach to a pole within the communication space that may be there or may not be there. It could be guy wires on a pole because you're adding weight to the pole with your fiber. Trees that are growing in the space. So there's basically there's a communication space, which is at the lower point, and then power is up top. So it's making sure there's no trees in that space. So it's anything like that.
Do they, Nova Scotia Power do that, or do our crews do that?
No, we are not allowed to touch their poles.
Okay, so Nova Scotia Power, okay, thank you.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Counselor Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am concerned that Nova Scotia Power, Inc. seems to have more or less a free hand in setting how high our bill will be. That is not good news. But my question is, Deputy Warden Murray, at a meeting a month or so ago, casually mentioned a proposal that may have been put to Nova Scotia Power where they would become a partner. Has that ever gone anywhere?
It went to them, and well, the day it was presented to them, it was basically, we'll get back to you on that. There wasn't an outright refusal. We did request significant dollars from them, so it is being evaluated within their corporation, see if they can become a partner.
Can I ask then that you follow up on that?
It's being
Please.
followed up on a weekly basis with them.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing it, oh, go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Just one more, and this, your slide there, Brian, it said 25% uptake for fiber and 8% for wireless. So far, is that the numbers?
I think so.
So, my concern is if we're not going to go in the already served areas where the bulk of the residents are, and so, you know, how are we going to pay for this project at the end? That is my concern. So, I just want to make that out, put that out there. 25% uptake for fiber is very low, and 8% for wireless. That's a lot lower than I ever thought it would be. So. I'm just concerned that this project might end up costing the taxpayers money, so, thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further comments or questions, we'll move along. The Audit Committee report, Councillor Wadden. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we met on October 2nd and revised of the audit status as of September 16, 2024. As you are aware, our financials should be into the province by the end of September to avoid any penalty from the province. This has not been happening for the past number of years, and the Audit Committee put a huge emphasis to get this reporting under control. We do have John Rodding working with Karen, and although this is costing us to have his assistance, we do think it's paying off. There is a good possibility we may have the financials back to the Audit Committee sometime in December to be followed up by submitting to Council for the final approval. And this is certainly a sharp contrast to the previous years when we were late March and later approving our financials for the previous years. So it's still not where we want to be, but we are inching towards meeting our September deadline. And we're moving forward with our collection of overdue taxes and plans for an upcoming tax sale. We know this is crawling at a snail's pace, but all legalities must be followed to ensure that this is done properly. And title searches do depend on legal. When we do send the first letters, about 25% are making arrangements to get these back taxes paid. So I do hope as we whittle down through this list, this will be an issue that will be looked at on a regular basis to make sure we do not fall so far behind again. We realize the economy is making many suffer, but residents do have to realize their property taxes must be paid. That is our main source of income, and we need to show residents we mean business about collecting their back taxes, or there will be repercussions. We are not looking to put more burden on our residents, but we all must pay our fair share. We encourage making arrangements to help with this burden. And we discussed the MOPC project, and we have the monthly CAPEX acquisition, which Brian passed out to everyone here tonight. It's a good opportunity for everyone to have a look over it. There is a concern with the amount being charged by NSP, and I think we discussed that quite in depth with the report from Brian. We are quite a bit over budget on this line number, which is quite concerning, especially where we may have been charged for work that really should have been covered by NSP themselves. Brian, Wayne, and Robert have met, and we're planning to continue to meet to see if some of these changes could be charges could be reimbursed to our project. And hopefully we will hear good news on this issue before our next Audit Committee meeting. Thank you.
And thank you to you, Councillor Wadden, for serving as chair of a committee over the past term. That's great.
Just
Go
add
ahead.
one
Yeah,
thing.
go right ahead.
Just on the report that was circulated tonight, the only item that is in flux with our internet project is the Nova Scotia Power line. Everything else is fixed contract, and the prices that have been negotiated are actually below budget. So the only thing that is in flux is the make ready. Everything else is controlled costs from now to the end. So that's the big point.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that, because if you look at those final figures, it is the Power Commission that dragged it. Like, if it wasn't for the Power Commission, we'd be okay with this project, but it's really pulled the numbers down. But everything else is well under budget. So.
Yes.
And the estimates that we're using based on what we have seen is for the work that hasn't been completed yet is 34% over our original estimate. So that's why what's driving the numbers is what we've seen built to date. is about 34% higher. So we've estimated to the end of the project, it is based on that error factor of the 34%. So if we can knock that 34% down, yeah,
Yeah, it'll make quite a difference.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Any final comments or questions on the audit committee report? All right, seeing none, we'll move along to tax receivable report. We've been pretty steady as compared to last month. Any comments or questions on that? Right, seeing none, we'll move along to the deed transfer tax report. Guys, go right ahead. Oh, you want to turn your mic on, Councillor Wadden? Oh, turn your mic on, please, Councillor Wadden.
Sorry, I was just trying to pull the. Okay. Just wondering on the beginning, like all the accounts payable information for the internet operations, quite a few of them don't have check numbers, so just how are they being paid? Like, there's like descriptions beside them, like RB numbers and invoice numbers, but no description for, like, when I look at this, it's over $2 million we paid out this month, and it just kind of makes me nervous that I don't know, I can't really understand.
Are you speaking
what
about
the
accounts
best-
paid?
Yes.
Oh, yes, we're not there yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's
We're
what-
on the tax receivable report. But yes, and those are paid electronically. Yeah. Yes, we're on the tax receivable report. All right, so we didn't have any questions on that, so we're moving on to the deed transfer tax. Any questions or comments there? Okay, all right, now we'll move on to our reports requiring a motion. So the first thing, I'd like to get a motion on the floor for accounts paid for the month of September. Moved by Councillor Parker, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Okay, so Councillor Wadden, you had asked about those, especially the internet at the beginning of the report. They don't have the check numbers, the standard check numbers. Yes, and I think we discussed before that those are paid electronically. Am I correct in saying that, Karen?
Talk to Ms. Nair on that.
Okay.
The majority of the payments are paid electronically.
Yes.
And if it would help for clarification, we could include that in there, so when you're not seeing a check number, it's very clear, it's accounted for in our electronic payments.
Okay. And to that, is there any way in the description, like when you go down to like the regular bills that we pay as a council, what what they're for, like just to get an idea of what all the bills or all the payments are for, just so we'd have an idea of, like, for example, I'll use you as an example, Rihanna, like you have 443.32 and just an RB 144, 108.69200, just what,
Yeah.
some kind of an explanation as to what that is, so we know what
Absolutely.
being
This
put
is
towards.
just the generated report out of the system, so
Yeah.
it's very basic information from
Yeah.
the invoice entry, but we can definitely provide some more detail on what it actually represented.
Okay, appreciate that.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Check number 23172, there are three amounts there for $24,477. It's July, August, and September. Has CTY share for the Wellness Center.
County share.
County share. That's our share. We pay every month, do we?
Yes.
Oh, I thought they changed that to a lump sum at the start of the, well,
They changed it to billing us monthly
oh, do they?
for their budget amount, as opposed to one big amount for a deficit.
One big amount, okay.
Any other check numbers, Councillor Palmer?
No, that was her.
Okay, that was it. Any final comments or questions? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. All right, so next we're going to move on to 8. This is our business items requiring action. So we'll start with 8A. This was a streetlight request that is for District 3. So I had requests from residents out in the Faulkner Road, which is off Highway 6, requesting a streetlight. So I'll pass this over to you, Logan, for comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the request. all allotted, all 10 allotted streetlights in District 3 have been used. Therefore, they need to be approved by myself, the director. This light, for those unaware, is located at the intersection of Highway 6 and Faulkner Road and Caribou River. In terms of whether or not it meets the threshold to be approved, because Highway 6 does have high traffic volume, and Faulkner Drive is provincially owned, and 50% of it is paved. However, finding information on the number of accidents there is difficult. With this said, as a means of safety, I do find that there is a justification for a light at that location. Happy to take any further questions.
Okay. So does anybody want to make a motion? Okay, moved by Councillor Dewar, seconded by Councillor Parker. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Parker.
I talked earlier this evening about safety. We need to do what we can for safety. Thank you.
Yes, and I would agree, and especially if you're driving the trail at night, those are also kind of like markers as well, because you're able to, especially in those dark, snowy nights, you're able to say, okay, well, that's a light at Faulkner, and they're helpful. That's a good word, helpful, and definitely make it more safe. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. Next, 8B, we have appointments to the Accessibility Committee. So a request from Antonio Phillips, Joy Polly, and Sarah Fraser, who were interested in joining the committee. All meet policy requirements. There are 3 seats available for non-elected members. Can we have a motion on the floor? Moved by Councillor Turner, seconded by Warden Parker. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Warden Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is great that we have people stepping forward for our Accessibility Committee. I know they've struggled some in their first year or two trying to get off the ground, but they do need some fresh blood, I think, and these are people, by reading what they sent in, you can tell they're very committed. I do know Ms. Fraser just lives up the road from me, and Miss Polly, I know, went through some serious health problems, and I'm glad to see she's bouncing back enough to be able to join this committee. I do not know Ms. Phillips, but I know all 3 of them will do a good job and are badly needed, I think, on that committee. So I'm glad they stepped forward, and we'll move them, I hope.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no further comments or questions, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have a Hector Arena Commission appointment. The Hector Arena Commission has 1 vacant seat for a citizen appointment representing the municipality of the County of Pictou. This position was advertised and 2 people expressed interest, Julie McKay and Blake Ferguson. 1 name will be selected and moved to council in November for final recommendation. Councillor Elliott.
I'd like to move that we accept Blake. They are a couple, and from reading his write-up here, I'd say he's a really good candidate, and I've worked with him in the past, having sit on the council as a chair. So I would move that we accept Blake's.
Okay, we have a
I'll second
seconder.
it.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Elliott and seconded by Councillor Palmer that we accept Blake Ferguson for the position of the appointment for Hector Arena Commission. Go ahead, Councillor Parker.
It's great to see the Ferguson name
Yes,
still associated there.
absolutely. Any questions, final questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Recreation sponsorship grant approval. We have Pictou Academy Education Foundation requests a grant to support its Aspire Speaker Series. Request is between $500 to $2,500. What is your pleasure, councillors? Go ahead, Councillor Parker.
My first instinct when I read this, I always heard that the Pictou Academy Education Foundation was loaded. That was my first instinct. Then I thought about it and said, no, this is for a good cause. So I will move that we grant them $1,000.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, moved by Counselor Parker and seconded by Counselor Elliott, that we grant the Pictou Academy Education Foundation the amount of $1,000 for the Aspire Speaker Series. Go ahead, Counselor Butler.
Madam, does this indicate that this is going to be an annual commitment?
I don't believe so. I didn't see that. Am I wrong?
Does it say it?
Also like to comment that we have an education foundation in Pictou East. And I guess if we make this decision, then perhaps the same request may come forward from Pictou East.
Yes, absolutely. And this is specifically for the Aspire Speaker Series. It has it's a specific ask as well. Yes, so. I don't see anything about being annual.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
It does say that it just hopes to make it an annual event,
Yes.
but it's not set in stone yet. So this
Okay.
is the first year for it.
Okay, Counselor Boyles.
Yeah, well, as I said when I was campaigning, I don't know why we're giving money to other places, other towns, and that we got it right here in our own, to me, it'd be better if we give the 2,000 to, as Don said, if we got one in Pictou East, rather than one, because it don't make sense to me that we keep giving county money and taxpayers' money out to other towns when we got our own people that's just as deserving.
Counselor Elliott.
Even though they're trying to make it an annual event, we're not obligating ourselves to give those funds every year. We're only obligating ourselves to this one ask.
Okay. Counselor Parker.
I'd like to point out that there are a fair number of county students who attend Pictou Academy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Warden Parker.
Yeah, I knew I had a question, I just couldn't find it for a while, but it says, in addition to the evening event, Swish is also taking the opportunity of November 4th to speak with grade 11 and 12 students from our local high schools, schools being plural. Do we know what high schools are involved? Is it out in the rural area as well, or is it only in the county, or in the town, I mean? Maybe nobody knows an answer to that, I don't know, but it does say schools.
There's only high schools in the county.
Yeah, there's only 3 high schools in the county, so I'm wondering, is the plan meant, I was looking at it as something that even though it might be being held in the town of Pictou, it's meant for the whole county, but that's why I'm asking the question where it says schools. But
Yeah. I think we need to ask that question. I think we need to find that out.
they probably need to know right away, do they? What's the timeline on this?
Well, if it's happening November 4th, I would assume that it's a couple of weeks.
The motion is to give them $1,000 no matter what.
Yeah.
We can find that out after, but
Absolutely. Counselor Elliott? That's what you're going to say. Okay, any further comments or questions? Hearing none, let's call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. One nay. Motion carried. Okay, next we have a recreation startup grant. This is for the Old School Cooperatives Merchant Limited. Requests a startup grant valued at $350. We have a motion, please. Moved by Councillor Butler, seconded by Councillor Dewar, that we approve this startup grant.
1,500.
Any questions or comments? Yes, go ahead, Warden Parker.
I'm reading on the bottom, just before she signed off, that we would like to request 1,500 to cover our expenses.
That's the next one.
Oh, sorry, am I ahead of the game?
Yep.
Oh, well, but better than be behind the game anyway. Sorry, I just wondered why we.
Yes, yes.
Carry on, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Yes, and 350 is our standard startup grant. Seeing no other comments or questions, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have our recreation operating grant. This is from UC Friends in Thorburn. They request $1,500 for the program, which serves children 7 years and up and encourages positive interaction with each other and their communities. Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Palmer, seconded by Deputy Warden Murray, that we accept the request for the $1,500 for UC Friends in Thorburn. Any comments or questions on that? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Just want to comment on it. This has been running for the last 3 years, I think, and every year it seems to be growing more and more, so it's great for the kids. They have a lot of positive feedback from this program, so hopefully the $1,500 go a long way to help them, so thank you.
Wonderful. Go ahead, Councillor Wadden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to say these types of programs are essential in our communities, especially our rural communities, because it's so nice to have a gathering place and a learning environment for the children in our rural areas. So I know we have one running now in Little Harbor, and it's really well attended and really appreciated. So thank you.
Yep, it's good to hear those comments. Okay, seeing no further comments or questions, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Okay. Move along to H. This was something that I requested to have on. What did you? Oh, I crossed it off, though. I lie. Okay, sorry. Municipal Service Grant for District 7. St. Andrew's Presbyterian Garlock Church requests $5,000 to install heat pump in Church Hall. Sorry, Councillor Parker. Yes, I assume you were.
Thank you, Madam Chair. St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, when it was built 145 years ago or so, the elders went out and measured every other Presbyterian church in the county because they wanted it to be the biggest. And it is the biggest. Now with a congregation, I know that in 1925, the congregation was more than 800.
Wow.
Now it's lucky if they get 2% of that. And they close in the wintertime. Because being such a big building, it's impossible to heat. But they approached me earlier, and they wanted to go through a council grant. And I explained to them that Alma had tried that, and we told them you have to go through municipal grant. So municipal grant request, and I so move it.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Parker and seconded by Councillor Turner. We approve the amount of $5,000 request for the St. Andrew's Presbyterian Garlock Church. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay. Now, I'll go on to H, cell phone coverage. I requested this be put on the agenda. I don't know if anyone else here has gotten calls about cell phone service, but it has been my #1 call. You've gotten calls constantly. Especially this summer when, I don't know if Councillor Wadden has, when the cottagers moved in, they skyrocketed. I was getting calls multiple times a day concerning this issue. And I've noticed it myself. I know that my phone doesn't even ring. Somebody called me the other day. I just get a message. And if they don't leave a message, I have no idea they called. With older parents, being a counselor, it's kind of important that if people call me, that I can answer my phone. And as well, if the school had an emergency for my son or my parents had an emergency, God forbid, I may not get a phone call. And if they don't leave a message, I may not ever know that they called. So, I mean, it's not just me that's having this issue. I'm hearing it multiple times a week, and especially during the summer, sometimes multiple times a day. It is a safety issue, and something changed. After Fiona, the coverage changed, but something changed again this spring. And there needs to be huge changes made to our cell phone network in the province, and I know that the province is looking into this. So I'm going to make a motion that we, I can't make a motion. If somebody could make a motion, that we could write the province and ask, because they're sinking a bunch of money into, like Councillor Butler had talked about tonight, about having, asking if any of that money is being proposed for Pictou County that would help this issue. Yeah, I'm just talking about the motion that I'd like to make, just, so if you wanted to make that motion.
I'll make the motion that you speak.
Okay.
I know what you're getting at.
Yes, that there's money.
Words to it.
Yeah, that there's money, if we could ask the province of Nova Scotia, if the money that they are putting towards for cell phone service, if any of that is allotted for Pictou County. Okay, so it's been moved by Warden Parker and seconded by Councillor Boyles. Okay? Go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
So I'm on the Public Safety Committee with NSFM, and we just got our package for Wednesday's meeting, and the minutes, we discussed rural cell phone coverage, and it's, we prioritize that as an NSFM priority. But the big thing is Build Nova Scotia has closed their Phase 1 procurement. And in that Phase 1 procurement, there is areas of Pictou County that are going to receive cell phone coverage. Most of it's on the southeastern section of Pictou County right now, and the carrier's Rogers. But there's this Phase 2, and the Phase 1, we'll call it the low-hanging fruit, is where they can put cell towers up, or in our case, partner with us on 2 of our towers. Second phase is going to be a little more site-specific. It's going to require local knowledge, and that's where our municipal councils can come in. We can say, there's a church steeple, or there's a high hill over here where you could probably put one up to get people up and running. I'm not sure the issues with the present providers of cell phones in the area. I don't know if it's just there's too many people on the phones when the cottagers come, or whatever it is, but
No.
But there's a Phase 2 coming up for Develop Nova Scotia, and that's where we can raise the alarm bells, I guess. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. That's great to know that this is a priority of NSFM. Go ahead, Warden Parker.
Sure, I know Pictou County is included with our towers and whatnot, but we have to keep the pressure on, I think. By sending this letter, it just helps keep the pressure on a bit, that there's certainly, the southeast or whatever is, desperately in need. There's nothing there. But there's nothing in a lot of more populated areas too. Some people think it's only out in the sticks or whatever that there's not reception, but that's not true. But on top of that, and this leads to some of these huge companies. Part of the reason we got into the internet business in the first place, because we knew that some of these were never going to get served. If we didn't serve them, they were told they weren't ever going to get it with the internet. But this cell service is very similar. So I visited a house last week during the election period in District 7, and they showed me the email they got that day saying that, well, I don't mind mentioning the company, ExploreNet, sent them a letter saying that as of November 4th or December 5th, whatever it was, we're discontinuing your internet, any service. So those poor people have no connection, cell service, internet, anything. And I mean, they don't live way back in the woods. They live on a road that has lots of homes on and stuff. So I'm sure the other homes are the same way. And Councillor Dewar brought this up first a long time ago about the doctor's situation, people having to travel through a lot of backwoods to get to into HRM or whatever to see a doctor. So this is a big issue, and now's the time when the province they're affixed to it. So we need to push to make sure that we don't get forgotten in that big picture. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Anyone else? I will say it is a very hot topic, and something has changed. There is a difference, a huge difference since I'm going to say April. So while I can see that when there's more people on it, as to Counselor Thompson's point, yes, but there's a difference, so. Go ahead, Counselor Wadden.
Yes, it's definitely been a change, because I know if you go even across the Trenton Connector now, you lose your signal. So there's definitely been a change in the signal we're getting in this part of the province, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, any final comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Okay, next we have deferred business. We have the Pictou Library funding, and I believe last meeting we talked about if we discussed about having the money be operational, a continual annual stipend for the library. And as you see here at the very last page, it's, what are these minutes of? 2019, I was gonna get the date here. These are the minutes from August 26, 2019, and as we scroll down, there's a couple parts highlighted here. Councillor David Parker asked if the ask for $275,000 for capital costs and shared operating costs with the town of Pictou. Mr. Greencorn replied that the shared costs will be $50,000 on an annual basis between the town and the county. And then if we scroll down to the end here, Councillor Palmer asked if the operating costs were also included in the funding, and the CAO replied, what's wrong here? Capital contribution of $275,000 is the only cost at this point. Warden Robert Parker informed the committee that the operating costs will be negotiated between the municipality and the town of Pictou. So that was, I guess, a point of information. So go ahead, Warden Parker.
Yeah, that's there, and that's 5 years ago, but we still knew that information at that time. But the important thing is what's taking place now. So tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock, Councillor Wadden and myself will be at a meeting at the new library to discuss this very issue here. What is that cost, or what are they estimating that cost to be now? It's one thing to say $50,000 5 years ago, but what is that cost worked out to be now? I know I was sent a package on that today, but I deliberately didn't read it because I wanted to wait until our committee had a chance to discuss that before it went to either council. So that discussion will take place tomorrow. But that's where we left it, that it would be 50-50 between the town and our county. And that amount, whether that changes or not, until we look at the figures tomorrow, I won't know the amount, but I hope it's close to that. I can't say at this time, but it is only for the library, not for the DeCoste, is my understanding. Maybe you know more about that, Councillor.
I was just going to say, I took a quick run through the email, and I didn't see any information pertaining to the operational costs in the email, so it would like to be discussed more at the meeting.
Yeah, I'm not sure it is going to be discussed tomorrow.
Okay. It's on the agenda, but that's...
It's on the agreement is on the agenda, but I'm not sure the costs are quite finalized.
Okay.
They may be, he may have them done by tomorrow.
Okay. No, I thought I saw operational costs on
Yeah,
there,
so they may have it ready for tomorrow.
Yeah.
The order of magnitude is not much different than 5 years ago.
I didn't think it would be, but that's good news if that's the case.
Yeah.
Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And back here, when we were discussing that back in August 26, 2019, when Mr. Greencorn replied, that was for the cost center and the library. Mm-hmm. Because Mr. Greencorn was representing the cost center at the time, was he not?
Yep.
Still is, right? So, and nowhere in there did we say that we would. There's no motion there saying that we would. Is there? Yeah, put it on future financial service, so there's no.
Yeah, it says financial. performance and including in decision and financing formula to be
Recommend forward
determined.
council that would expand, yes.
During budget deliberations.
My thing is, if we do this for one library and the town of Glasgow comes, we're gonna have to do it for them. Town of Southern comes, do we do it for them? You know, it's, you know, right from the get-go, they build the library, and I know our residents use that library, and our residents use the one in New Glasgow. And I know what this committee, or this council would say if New Glasgow came looking for it, so we gotta be cautious of what we do, so. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Okay. Warden Parker?
I know where Councilor Palmer's coming from, and maybe we're putting ourselves in a box here, I don't know, but I think back 5 years ago, whether there's an official motion or not, I don't know, but the understanding from the presentation that night, and we didn't oppose it, as I remember that night, so it'd be pretty hard to go back now and say, well, we changed our mind, we're not gonna pay any of the operating costs after it's all built. If I thought it was something that wasn't gonna serve our rural residents, and there are some things like that, then, yeah, I'd look at it differently, but there's no doubt, they have the numbers on, I think for the cost, it's actually more rural residents than town, and I think for the library, we're 45%, if I remember the figure right. So why shouldn't we be paying part of the operating cost? If that's, we have a library in River John, I think that's the only rural, unless I'm wrong, the only rural library we have, and we do put $3,000 a month, that's $36,000 a year into that library. So will we have to put some into others eventually? Maybe, and again, maybe it's right if we're using those libraries for our citizens. So I don't see us backing out of this because it was given to us 5 years ago. If we really wanted to stand up against it, we probably should have said something at that time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Councilor Parker?
I move we defer this pending further information.
We have a seconder? Okay. Councilor Turner? Okay. So motion to defer? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Okay. Community announcements. Yep. Councilor Elliott.
It's not an announcement for the community. It's to tell you that it's been a pleasure to serve for District 4, and it was the shortest term ever, probably, that will go down in the books. I enjoyed working with everybody in this room and all the people within the building, and I believe that the good Lord has other plans for me, and I'm eager to see what they are. Everything happens for a reason. And Warden Parker, do not be crossing the East River Road. Pay your $2 and stop trying to cross that road. And I hope we haven't discouraged our new councillors by the meeting going so long. And I will make it official by removing my name for the next person for the seat. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. We will miss you. Thank you. You get your placard. You gonna take yours too, Councilor Parker? Yeah, don't forget yours, Councilor Butler. Look, memories. Go ahead, Warden Parker.
Thank you, and I want to personally thank Mary. She did a great job. It takes all of us a little while to learn the ropes, but I could really see the growth over the last 2 years, so we're going to miss you, Councilor Elliott. I do have a community announcement as well. So on November the 2nd, which isn't too far off now, our men's club in Durham at the Church Hall, and I've mentioned this before, makes apple pies to take home and put in your freezer. And when company comes, they don't know that when you pull that out and throw it in the oven, you didn't make it just for them. So we generally do 400, 450 apple pies, and then we go out and try and sell them, and the money is used to help our community members that are hurting, and also to help some of the local schools. We let the teachers decide where the need is, but it's usually with winter boots and clothing and that type of stuff, because we have more money going into the breakfast and lunch programs now. So I have papers here tonight. Anybody that would like to order them, they're $10 or 3 for $25. And if you don't happen to have cash, which a lot of people don't, I do take IOUs. I haven't got one of those squares yet, but I'll get there someday. But if you can, that works for you and you can help some others. I have one little side story, if I might, Madam Chair. I went out this afternoon selling these pies, trying to, and the first 2 customers I came to, one I found out, and this is just a neighbor just up the road, I found out he had had a stroke 4 weeks ago and was in bad shape and, you know, could use all kinds of help from anybody. And the very next place I went to, and I hadn't even heard any sirens the other night, but on Friday night, both those West River Fire Department, Scotsman Fire Department, and Alma Fire Department were all at this mini home, about a half mile up the road from me. And so she lost her home. Her and her 2 older sons, teenage sons, lost their home. And I thought, my golly, I know why I'm doing this now anyway, that here's 2 neighbors that need some help right away. So anyway, I have the form with me. If anybody's looking, I got yours saved, Councillor Dewar.
Perfect.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, wonderful. Okay, Councillor Dewar.
Thank you. Randy took some of the fire away and then the warden as well, but I want to talk just for a minute or 2 about our 3 councillors that aren't going to be here.
Don't say anything bad.
No, there's never usually anything too bad. But anyway, it was 24 years ago Dave and I got to come here, and he kind of surprised me when he pulled out this year, but anyway, there's all kinds of things that happen outside of this boardroom, council room. Dave's been on Riverview Residential Center for years, and he's the board chair the last number of years. The time that's spent and the work that group did to try to keep that place there the way it is, up to code all the way around. And just because some lawyer or judge made a different decision, it's going to be changed. A perfectly good building. I guess likely I thought maybe that would be appealed or something, somebody take them to court, but when you're dealing with the public's money, you go to court for a long time. But it doesn't matter if it was Riverview Residential Center, planting the trees, helping the community halls, helping the churches. Like when we started, I had 8 community halls. I got 2 now. I used to have 100 volunteers. I got a handful of volunteers of that same group, okay? And volunteers are something that they were a special bunch of people. Like, I seen a few ladies over the years in different halls that if they didn't make the tea, nobody would drink it. And it's just the way it is, okay? But it didn't matter if it was lodge, the community centers, the home, the cemeteries. David always looked out for his people. He listened to his people. And they'll tell you that, the people that are still on those committees. He listened to his people. And that's what the rest of us got to really remember. We got to listen to our people. If we don't listen to our people, we shouldn't even be here, okay? So that's the first little pat in the back for Mr. Parker, and I'm certainly going to miss him. But anyway, now I'm going to move on to Mr. Butler. 8 years here that's quite a little while too. It's not 24, but 8's a long time. And he certainly represented his people well. When you talk about anything that's happening down the shore, there's the man that started it, the man in charge. Like 25 years of this Lismore dinner and the entertainment, holy mighty. You could go to some of the other places and pay $75 for the same laugh. And the entertainment, the work that goes into it, and it's the same with Don. Don served on the board at Valley View as the secretary. What a miserable, rotten job that is, because we're all trying to make the motion and he's trying to write it down and then somebody else changes it. There's no thanks for any of this stuff. This is volunteer boards, right? And he's going to be gone, and it looks pretty grim as far as I'm concerned, but the only time I ever made 100 in anything was the last day that man worked at the Department of Highways. I went out to get my bus license. I made 100 on the test. I said, can you photocopy that? And he wouldn't even do that for me. The only time in my life I got 100. Anyway, I owe a lot to Don as well, because his family and myself and some of our family, we go back a long way, and we always talked about what went on going home, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And like I said, there's another perfect example of a man that pretty well burnt himself out working, trying to please everybody, okay? So now I won't be near as long because she was only here 4 years. But I think I certainly appreciated everything that Mary talked about. Mary talked from her heart about the people from Tony River to Brule and the Cape, everywhere. She knew what was going on, and she did a lot of real good things out there, and she'll be remembered for what she did. And her idea, whatever else they got planned for her, they're likely going to add another bus run onto her or something. There'll be something that she won't want. But anyway, I know that besides us here, there are lots of people that appreciated everything that you did. Thank you.
Chester flew me tonight, and so did Robert. I thought you were going to tell diaper stories. And I thought Robert was going to say the party was at his place, and that the pies were going to be free.
Uncooked.
Thank you, Chester. Well said. Well said. Just 1 second. Councillor Parker.
Thank you. I haven't planned to make a long thank you speech. I did a bit of that at a regular council meeting 2 weeks ago. I certainly appreciate the kind words. As I told several people over the last month or so, when your voice wears out, you're out the door. You can't be a politician anymore. I'm hoping this will recover once I don't have to use it quite so often. I wanted to end on a positive note, but before I go there, I wanted to offer my public condolences to Councillor Butler, who's lost both a sister and a brother in the last 3 months or so. So I think we need to recognize that. Now, I do have something positive. Bragging. World's first river carbon reduction site, carbon dioxide reduction site. It was opened, or a grand opening, beside the river 5 days ago. There was myself and Warden Parker and soon to be Councillor Parker were in attendance. There's about 100 people there, about half locals and half connected to this company called Carbon Run. They are a for-profit company. They expect that that facility, which is basically a 60-foot high steel silo with ground limestone in it and some computer stuff down at the base and sensors in the river. They expect it will, the projections, and it's world's first, so there's got to be some work done here. It'll take about 1,000 tons of carbon dioxide out of the air per year. And I just checked a few minutes ago, the current price of carbon is about $200 US per ton. So you can do the math. They will be selling those carbon credits to Meta and Google and Spotify and any of those other big companies that want to appear green. This really is green. It's happening in District 7. It's happening in our county. It's happening on the little river that we grew up on. So we're pleased about that. Basically, the magnesium and calcium carbonate combine or react with the carbon dioxides in the water and tie it up. And because there's now less carbon dioxide in the water, more filters in from the air, and it gets tied up. Then that sediment passes out into the strait, where it eventually settles to the bottom and becomes a rock over a few thousand years. It could be tied up for millions of years. This is a very repeatable process. It could be done dozens of times in this county. It could be done many hundreds of times in this province. Okay, multiply by 1,000 each time. It could be more than that on a bigger river. The West River at Watervale, just a half kilometer down from the bridge, it's only about from me to Peter wide. And in that time in October, it didn't have a lot of water flowing through it, but it will have more during other parts of the year. Anyway, it's a very simple technology. It's a proven technology as far as helping the pH in the river. It's been done in Sweden and Norway, and it's been done for the last 20 years on the West River Sheet Harbor. There's 2 lime dosing silos on that river, and it's significantly improved their salmon returns. So it has all kinds of potential for the environment, for the atmosphere, and hopefully for the company called Carbon Run. Thank you.
Okay. Warden Parker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly to add to what my brother said on the Carbon Run, whoever thought that little old Watervale, way up in the middle of the sticks, would ever make the front page of the New York Times? That's where it ended up at, this story. And they're one of the lead ones, making something really happen. Other people have good ideas, but they're not really making anything happen yet. This one's actually happening now. And a lot of salmon fishermen park right across from our property to get their, share of salmon, or they're only catch and release, but I mean, they want to do that, but there's no water this year, so there's no salmon. There's no salmon run right now, and there might not be in time before the end of the month comes. But what I want to say when I put my hand up first, Madam Chair, and Dave stole a little bit of it, but I certainly thought of it when Chester was speaking. It takes quite a man to be here tonight after burying his brother this morning, and I admire that. So he wanted to be here because he felt an allegiance to this council and allegiance to the people he represents. So he wanted to be here for his final night. And it was a difficult day, I'm sure, for him, and difficult to be here tonight, but I just wanted to pay respect to Don for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks for being here.
Who does? Well, Councillor Palmer.
Better get 2 plugs in here. One, October 27th, we're having the trunk or treat at the Thornton Rink. It starts at 6 o'clock and goes till the treats are gone. Last year we had over 300 children attend, so we're looking forward to that again this year. So far, I think we get 22 trunks. So, and then on November 23rd, we're in the planning stages for the 50th anniversary celebration of the Thornton Rink, and we had our second committee meeting the other night, and plans are well on the way. So once things get settled, I'll be able to tell you more details on that. So, thanks very much.
Yes, hockey season is beginning, I guess, sea level this weekend. Pumped. Okay. Councillor Wadden.
Thank you. Just where we had the discussion in the Pictou Library, just if you haven't had the opportunity to go down and see that library, I urge you all to go down. It's a phenomenal place, and it's something we should be so proud of in this county. The grand opening is coming up November the 1st, from 2 to 3, and it'd be well worth your while if you could take a few moments and go down and see just what we have here, because the artwork alone, it's not just a place to get books, but it's a good place to read books. So it is a phenomenal facility, so I just hope everyone takes advantage of it.
Yes, I know. I've been hearing wonderful comments. Everybody is blown away right down there. So, Councillor Thompson.
Just a quick update. There's a whole bunch of activity going on in their net zero project around the county, and a lot of your community centers are taking part in this. As I said before, the East River Valley Rec Field hall out there is totally complete. It's got solar panels on it. Insulation, heat pumps, all that good stuff, the efficiency, so it's a net zero building now. Tony River, they did their efficiency work, heat pumps, insulation, that sort of thing, earlier with some grant money, and they are in the process of installing solar panels today. Garden of Eden, Blue Mountain are on tap for both efficiency and solar work in the coming weeks. Abercrombie's ready to go. Bev is on that, and we'll transform that hall, give him a good firm start and help support these places. Union Center, I think they did all of their efficiency work, and now they got a metal roof on their building, and their next step would be the solar panels on the roof. And the last three are in Dawn's district, Joe's district to be. Sutherland's River, they're going through a major transformation there. They got a bunch of capital money through the province and the federal government to fix their hall up, but they're also part of this net zero project, so they're getting the same treatment of insulation, heat pumps, and LED lights, and drop ceilings, and all that good stuff. Marigamish, they're presently putting siding on their building, the 2-inch foam on it, and then they're putting metal siding on the outside. And Lismore, Dawn, every meeting for the last 6 months, you've asked about when are they going to start, when are they going to start? And all I can say is it's going to be soon. So I know you'll be on the other end of the phone when somebody wants to get into the building, so we're looking forward to getting all this work done. And all this is being funded through a joint effort from all of these community centers. And I'll say that the Ivor McDonald Memorial Rink is even getting some treatment here with their annex, because they're using that space for exercise classes now, so they're looking at different efficiency measures like heat pumps, maybe some insulation or that sort of thing. So that's in the works. But all this is being funded through a community effort of 21 community nonprofit buildings around Pictou County, and it's a joint effort, and the funding comes from the Sustainable Communities Challenge Fund, and they received $600,000 in that fund, and the rest of the financing of that again is through efficiency rebates through Efficiency Nova Scotia. So when you roll through all the money and rebates and all the projects, it's about a $1.3 million project, and it's a testament to the community centers that they want to be sustainable. They want to be that example in their community that you know, this is how you can do it. This is how you can eliminate or reduce your energy costs, and the examples exist. They'll exist right in the community. So it's a beautiful project. A lot of attention around the province about what we're doing here. It's an approach that hasn't been tried before, so we got to prove that it works before we unleash it on anybody else, but the work's ongoing.
Okay, great, good things to hear. Any other final comments or questions? This is it. All right. Any motions of reconsideration? I don't believe we have any tonight. And with that, I call for adjournment. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Have a safe drive home.